Hey guys, welcome to the next exciting episode of Footy Banter and Insights. Today we will be talking about the famous Victor Osimhen saga. I think there are a lot of talking points here. So what we can do is we can have different perspectives from different people. We will start with Varun today. Varun, tell me all that you know about the saga.
Let's start with a brief background about Osimhen. Napoli signed him for £76 million. First season, average. Second season, a little better. Third season, scores 31 goals. Napoli wins the SerieA first time in 30 plus years since Maradona led them to the title. Becomes a cult hero over there. Wins African Footballer of the Year award. Then in December 2023, before leaving for African Cup of Nations, he signs a new contract with them with £113 million release clause. Again, debatable if it was the right thing to do on his end or not. But of course, Napoli wanted to tie him down to a bigger contract. Does well at African Cup of Nations. Takes Nigeria to the final. Comes back. His heart is set on leaving Napoli for Premier League or a bigger club. Napoli again not willing to let him go unless his release clause is met. And in the transfer market, with the situation that was going on, no club was willing to kind of meet those demands, right, for the players' wages as well as the release clause. And that's where there was a standoff between Napoli, the player, and other clubs. And at the end of it, he didn't sign for any of the bigger clubs and ended up joining Galatasaray for a loan deal. Unfortunately, Galatasaray are not even in the Champions League this year. So at least till January, he is kind of stuck over there, and let's see what happens next from here. That's a brief summary of his last 4 years of transfer history.
Very, very well captured. And what I'll do is, based on your discussion, I'll ask some questions to the remaining people. So, from which club did Osimhen join Napoli?
Lille.
Okay. And why are Galatasaray not in the Champions League? To which club did they lose?
Young boys.
Yeah. Maran's got 2 out of 2 till now. And this is for the marbles, as they call them. How many points did Galatasaray win last year to win the Superliga?
No clue.
Random guess.
Maran, come on, Google it. 74.
No. 74. Okay, Ishan, what's your guess?
80 or
80. Rahul?
84.
Varun?
I would say 82.
They finished at 102 points.
Wow.
The first time the 100-point barrier has been breached. And just for reference, the team in number 2 position was a team managed by a good friend, Jose Mourinho now. And they finished with 99 points. They actually lost only one single league game the entire season. Yet they lost out to Galatasaray. And if you're...
A lot of our familiar faces,
Absolutely.
stories, like, which actually make it very interesting. So another interesting piece is that Conte is back at Napoli.
Correct.
Conte signed Lukaku because Conte, for some reason, loves Lukaku. And of course, Osimhen wasn't happy because his number 9 number was given to Lukaku, right? And again, I don't understand why Napoli would do that, because clearly he was like the hero over there in the team, took them to the title. But again, we have the same figures of Conte, Lukaku. Then you have Mourinho coming back in the limelight with in the Turkey. So yeah, a lot of interesting stories in the back.
I'll get to a couple of 10 more, but I'd like to open the discussion up to Rahul now. Rahul, any views on this transfer and on this entire saga?
The saga is pretty interesting. Actually, the problem is we cannot get the full insight of it. Right? I just read an article today from John Obi Mikel, who should be a pretty reliable source, right? He's ex-Chelsea, ex-Nigeria player, so he's obviously a good source for Osimhen. And he was like, the deal was agreed between Chelsea and Osimhen. It was not that the wages thing or anywhere it was stuck due to wages. It was just that they could not get it on time. So according to him, that the January move to Chelsea is still open. So the pretext which has been made that the deal was stuck on wages, probably there was a compromise, because otherwise Osimhen, it doesn't make sense for him to waste such a prime year of his. Unfortunately, maybe Chelsea could not agree, could not get it done on time. So maybe he's still open, right? January, he might be back to the Premier League.
I actually saw that same, video as well. And it seems to be a little misinformation from both sources. Like, I don't know which source to trust. So, source one tells us that Chelsea's, let's say, key figures were camped in Napoli, and they made 7 different offers to Osimhen to try and get the deal over the line. And they kind of structured it in a way wherein his base salary would be around 120 to 130k, which would be the highest that they are paying their premium players right now. And there would be goals, assists, wins, Champions League bonuses, which would push his salary upwards of 200 to 250k, which would be a little haircut on his existing salary, but it would still be much higher than what, Chelsea are prepared to pay at this moment in time. But another key factor in this equation is, so John Obi Mikel, he does his podcast since last year, and he has been angling for Osimhen to join Chelsea for a long time, and it is also perceived that he may have some financial interest in that deal as well. So, yeah, like again, like I'm saying, there's no authenticity of the sources, but like through reading various articles on the web and via Twitter and following various, I would say, trusted and non-trusted sources, I think a lot of parameters are here. Like, I would love to believe that Chelsea were close, but I think it may not be as close as what we saw in that Mikel discussion.
Yeah, maybe, but we have read the release clause.
The release clause were out of the question. So the fact of the release clause, what happened is that Spalletti won the Italian SerieA with Napoli, and then he decided to quit. And Osimhen was very close to Spalletti, and I think he did not like the fact that Spalletti was leaving, and then he waited. Okay, fine, let's see who the new man in charge comes into place. They actually signed Rudy Garcia, and Rudy Garcia's style of football, level of thinking was not matching to Osimhen and many other senior players in the Napoli squad. And that created a huge rift internally. And they changed the coach, but I think unfortunately it did not work again. And there was a big issue which happened in terms of the media at Napoli as well, wherein there was an infamous TikTok video which had come out. So basically, I don't know where the group up was, but there was some person in the social media team of Napoli who kind of portrayed Osimhen in a very bad light on their official channel. I think Madan, he is, maybe, he can give more information about this.
I just know that this happened. I didn't really see the videos, but there were 2 videos showing Osimhen in a racist light.
Yeah.
He was very angry with that. And got under the bridge later when he came back and played for Napoli again after the African Cup of Nations. But it was a big, big issue when this happened, actually. And there was always something simmering, between Napoli and Osimhen since the summer. I think he wanted to leave after Spalletti left, and he was not allowed to leave. He was probably priced out of a move, basically. And yeah, so I don't know much about this particular incident other than the fact that there were 2 videos, and they were racist towards Osimhen, and he was not very happy about it.
But then he shouldn't have signed the new contract in December 2023. So I think that's where he also made a mistake. If Spalletti left and he was kind of half sure that he wants to leave as well, then signing that new contract, that too is such a high release clause didn't make any sense because it priced out a lot of clubs like even PSG, right, who were looking for a striker after Mbappe left, but they were just not willing to pay that release clause of his. So I think that was a big error of judgment on his part, his agent's part as well.
So his agent is someone who has created mischief for him a lot. And I think the reason for signing the contract was to get him that assured salary. Because before the signing of this contract, his salary was not at par with the top earners in SerieA. And suddenly, because of this contract, they kind of made the benchmark that he is a 250, 300k player. And if you see that particular summer window, so you had Kane leaving for about 100 million. You had other big players going at about 100 million. So it kind of felt that, a 100 million price tag was warranted at the time. Unfortunately, a season and a transfer window can change a lot. And I think the combination of a lot of factors really made it very difficult for him to kind of accept. So even this season, his agent came out and spoke very vehemently, saying that he is not going to go to Saudi Arabia. He has a lot to accomplish in Europe. And he should be respected as the African Footballer of the Year, and he should be respected and given the kind of pay which he deserves. So I think somewhere along the line, I think his agent kind of got into Osimhen's head saying that this is what you deserve, and he kind of messed up the deal according to it.
Also, signing the new contract I think it was already agreed between the club and the player that he is going to leave in the summer. Like a month or month and a half after the contract was signed, the president of Napoli publicly mentioned that we all know that Osimhen is going to leave this summer. We've just done this to increase the release clause, and Osimhen got the benefit of the fixed salary, as you mentioned.
But I think so the release clause was not an issue this season, right? They were ready to accept a lower fee from Chelsea.
Yes.
It was just that the agreement was not able to be made between them. I think so the new contract or the extension along with the loan has a lower release clause already.
Yes, 75 million.
75 million.
But I think from the beginning, right? Like I think, Ishan, you have some comments. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so there are two things which we have missed so far. Otherwise, we have covered everything, which I know extra of. There are two things. First is like Rahul Bhai mentioned, there is a release clause. Like there's a break clause. For example, Galatasaray has agreed a loan move for 1 season, but there's a break clause of 75 million euros, wherein Galatasaray will also get paid around 5 million euros if that's achieved, and some club arrives and agrees to pay that. First, when you agree on a release clause, there are some taxes which are levied. So nowadays, many clubs are trying to pay something extra than the release clause because eventually then the outflow is much more than the release clause because there are some taxes involved. That's what happened in Endrick's case also. He had a release clause, but I think Real Madrid paid something extra. Same thing happened with many players in the last couple of seasons. Like Nicholas Jackson, he had a 35 million release clause, but Chelsea paid 1 or 2 million extra for better payment terms and to avoid taxes also. So there is more to gain for the club which is selling the player also. So something like that. Secondly, his agent has been fired. That's what I've read. So I think when you know that your player is going to leave the club, I think the negotiation should have started much before, even if it's not official, but I'm sure like many agents start the negotiation. So why to leave such a big transfer till the last day of the window? Right? Like, and especially knowing that Napoli is a tough nut to crack when it comes to negotiations, then I think they should have prepared much better. So his agent has to be blamed for that. And yes, John Obi Mikel was brokering the deal. As per him, what he said in the video was that he was directly in touch with Paul Winstanley, who is the sporting director of Chelsea, and then he was in touch with Victor Osimhen directly, not his agent. He didn't mention his agent. He was saying he was speaking to Victor Osimhen directly. And when he said, he didn't say they had agreed on a deal. He said there were few things which were still pending, which they couldn't get over the line. And plus, they didn't have time to get the medical done. So it wasn't that everything had been agreed. There were few things which were not agreed also. And he was close to joining Al Ali from the Saudi Arabian club, but he wanted a release clause and almost everything was agreed. But he wanted to see if a European club comes for him or not. But Al Ali, being smart, they didn't want to wait too much till the end, and then that's why they got Ivan Toney deal done. So I think had Victor Osimhen agreed to join Al Ali with the release clause, which they also agreed, and that was an easy release clause, then Ivan Toney deal wouldn't have happened. But that's what I think Al Ali gained, and I think that was the right move to do. They got Ivan Toney for like 40 million euros or something, and that was a good move. Now, considering what John Obi Mikel said, he's saying that it is a very open window, and like Chelsea could revisit this deal in January. But as we know, like 4 or 5 months still are there, and like it's where the transfer market window is very dynamic. For example, a new striker like Victor Osimhen comes in, and he's agreed to join the club on a lower wage, and plus he's younger. Now there's some always a variable factor involved, so we don't know how. And plus Victor Osimhen is not going to play in an elite league, like Turkish league. Honestly, he's already not played since May. I think last couple of months he was injured, so he didn't play much. So almost 7 to 8 months without any action in high level of football. I don't know how he's going to cope up with that. So I personally, as a Chelsea fan, wouldn't want Chelsea to pursue that deal anymore. I would rather go for a Victor Osimhen, although he's been playing in the Portuguese league. But I think the player who willingly gets in the wage structure, rather than a player who is willing to compromise and then fit in a wage structure, because the player who is compromising will always think that he has compromised on something, rather than someone who is willing to, like, whose caliber is also only to get that kind of a money. So 150k for Victor Osimhen might be a lot of money, but not for Osimhen, because he already had a 250k a week contract with Napoli. And what I have read in few articles is that when they sign a new contract with a release clause, sometimes these players and agents have a share of it. Like, for example, even Enzo Fernandez had a share of it in his release clause. So that's why they try to sign that. Even Michael only said similarly. Why would he sign a release? Why would he sign a contract when he was close to moving to a bigger club in the previous season? Then he signed a new contract with a bigger release clause. Earlier it was 35 million pounds. Now then he signed for 55 million pounds, if I'm not wrong, which then Bayern eventually triggered. But I think players and agents, somehow they might be getting a share in this release clause. Plus, they get a extended contract on a higher salary, so their future is also secured. God forbid if they get injured or if something happens, a drop in form or something, that's a good insurance for them, I believe. So from a fan's perspective, it is easy to say that why would someone sign a new contract, but if you are in some player's shoes, then I believe securing your future is the first thing you would want to do when you are not from a good background or we don't know someone's backstory. So if you're getting 200k for 5 seasons secured, then why wouldn't you do that? On the cost of extra 20 million for a club who will eventually even pay that. You would know that they will pay. So why not secure your future and get a share of the new release club? I think that's the strategy what's going on.
But you really think that Chelsea shouldn't sign Osimhen if he's available?
No.
I think after this, all the things that have happened, I can understand his injury record. I can understand that he hasn't played at top level for quite a few months now, and probably he won't till January as well, right? Galatasaray is not that quality. But I think if he signs with a big club now, he will play with a chip on his shoulder. He will have something to prove, right? And I think such players can be
can sometimes turn into a goal dust kind of players as well.
And one more thing which is going negative for me is that his relations with the management somehow is always turning south. So I don't know about the attitude of the player. Nigerian club again, Nigerian federation again, Nigerian the head coach, he had sour relations in between. Napoli again, Conte was not ready to integrate him in his team. Somehow I'm not too confident on how he will fit. Like if things are not going his way, he tends to create a lot of issues around the team. So I don't want a character like that in and around the dressing room. So I would rather go for a young, say for example, a Benjamin Sesko or Victor Gyökeres. Victor Gyökeres would be my first preference over and above Victor Osimhen.
Arguably, from Osimhen's perspective, he joined a bigger club because Galatasaray are playing Europa League football.
I think so. One thing we are not considering is one thing we should consider is that I think so PSR is having an impact now, right?
Yes.
Rabiot, no one is signing him till now.
Yes.
Osimhen, the wages, people who are not prepared to break the wage barrier, not prepared to break the transfer fee barrier. Even for Ivan Toney, it was very surprising that Brentford was like here and there looking, no Premier League player, no Premier League team came and were ready to bid for around 40-50 million for a player who is proven the Premier League and he scores around 20 goals on an average.
Yes.
So somehow people are now restricting themselves and taking...
Plus, a guy who was already on a affordable wages. He was like 40k a week for Brentford.
People are not ready to pay the big contract, not ready to take that risk. Rather, they'll bet a little safer now.
As much as I remember, even João Palhinha had a failed deal with Bayern in the last summer window. Then he signed again a contract extension. I think that's the pattern where players are going towards. Although then
it was a club that chooses to go for that route when a transfer is close to be done, but it fails. And the club extends the contract of
Correct.
So that they have more security for the next window because with the contract running out, player gets more power.
Yes.
Also, I think like Osimhen is a bit overrated, I believe, because he's had just one proper good season in his career. Just once he's played more than 27 league games. Just once he scored over 20 league goals, which was the season that Napoli won the SerieA. And perhaps that he was hit by the fact that there was the Qatar World Cup break within the season so that he could maintain his fitness throughout the season. Like he had that break, Nigeria wasn't playing at. So that helped him a lot. And he's never really, performed at a £100 million level or even a £75 million level. So I think Chelsea actually might have dodged a bullet there. Maybe Nicholas Jackson is going to be overall better for them.
Okay, guys, let's do a quick wrap up.
Yes.
Do you have any?
So yeah, a few things. So let's go one by one. So number one, Varun, you and I were actually in Naples in 2022.
Yeah.
And we saw the land of Maradona. We saw the murals. We saw how the entire city is essentially football, man. And the way they were, literally worshipping Osimhen as a new big star. I think it's very sad to see how things have kind of gone backwards. Because I think, so when we had gone for this game, Real Madrid versus Napoli in the Champions League, and there was a small family sitting behind us, and literally I would say, how they worship these players, right? It was unbelievable. The kind of passion which they have in Napoli is unbelievable. And from that context, if I look at it into a different context, Victor Osimhen idolizes Didier Drogba, and he wanted to follow his career path. Unfortunately, now I think he's following his career path in reverse, wherein first he's going to Galatasaray, and then maybe he'll go to Chelsea. So we'll see how that shapes up. And if I look at it from a different perspective now, so is it actually a good move, and for whom? So let's just debate it for 2 minutes. So number one, Napoli. I feel it's a great move for Napoli because they've got him off their wage book and they have a release clause in hand, which hopefully can get triggered.
See, I'm looking at it from a more bigger perspective, right? Like, I'm looking at it not from just this small transfer going from Napoli to Galatasaray. I'm looking at it from a bigger picture that is, you have this one player who has made you win the league after 30 plus years. Could they have done things differently so that it didn't end it this way? Right? And I feel for a player that made them win, and as you mentioned, right, how passionate the fans are, I think Napoli should have done things differently so that it didn't end this way, right? So I'm looking at it from a bigger picture as well. The second point of view is winning a SerieA with Napoli is no easy feat, correct? And this guy literally carried them on their shoulder, right? Like, he literally, like, some of the goals that he scored, the timing of the goals, the games that he scored in, it was all crazy, right? And you know how Napoli is, the kind of atmosphere there is in the city, the passion that runs in the city. I think dealing under that kind of pressure, winning games for them, winning the SerieA for them, I think even from his perspective and his agent's perspective, they should have handled it better so that definitely he was the next big star after that season, right? And he could have got any move at that point. According to me, no club would have said no at that point. And again, from both the parties, I think it wasn't, the thing wasn't done properly. So again, like, not looking at it specifically from a Napoli to Galatasaray point of view, I think everything leading up to that was not done properly by either Napoli or the player or his agent, basically.
I don't buy.
Because Conte didn't want him also. I think that made a big difference in their transfer strategy regarding Osimhen. And let's say if Osimhen transfer is not happening and Conte is ready to integrate him in the squad, then everything is okay for Napoli. They are continuing to pay the wages, but they also have a player whom they feel is very productive. So Conte has a big factor in this transfer happening and Osimhen leaving Napoli, actually.
I came across a few articles and videos wherein Conte came out and said that he's a spectator in this entire transfer.
Yeah.
And he was very clear that what is happening with Osimhen is between him and the owner or the club in one aspect. And so Lukaku is definitely someone who Conte likes, and he likes a target man to kind of lead the attack. But Osimhen was actually very similar to that. Right?
Yeah.
He could have also integrated. But the reason I think it did not happen is because of the club and the owner. And ADL has a history of making things difficult for people to leave.
Like, I agree with Varun on this. I think so. All have come out as losers except for Galatasaray. Yeah, they probably got a player who is much above their pedigree right now. They've got a superstar at a decent price, but Napoli, it's not a good deal for them. They've made a best out of a worse situation by sending him out there, but definitely they would have preferred him to go and probably get the money this season only. Even if he goes to Saudi, it would not matter to them. Not a good deal for Victor Osimhen because he obviously didn't. He was probably trying to get the Premier League or stay in Europe, but I think so. It's the worst of thing which could be. Everyone could have planned it much better.
Chelsea might be a winner in disguise. You never know.
Maybe, but I think so. Chelsea also needed this profile, right? Maybe not Victor Osimhen. They could have gotten. They wasted their time in trying to get him. Otherwise, they could have gone probably someone else. Because this is one profile which Chelsea is missing.
Point that they spent the last week of the transfer window giving him 7 different offers and not happening means that somewhere along the line he was the main priority, and somehow it did not work out.
And some Chelsea staff members visited Naples to convince him.
Correct. There was a whole delegation which had gone over there.
And honestly, he would have been a big upgrade to Jackson, according to me. And I think a signing like that can be the difference for Chelsea between coming 5th or 6th versus coming 4th. Like, really, like, it's, and that is your main money coming from Champions League, right? So I think signing Osimhen in the summer window would have been a great move for Chelsea.
I really like Jackson. For some reason, the way he helps in the build-up he's very underrated, and people, he's like Kai Havertz of our team.
No, and I actually agree with Ishan here because if you look at the facts, right, last year he scored, I think, 13 goals in the Premier League, all were non-penalty goals. He can play left, he can drop deep, he can bring others into the game.
Yes.
And the way Maresca is trying to play, I think he is more crucial as a player profile than someone like an Osimhen right now. Possibly if they can have a mix of both at some point of time, which would be great. But at least still now, like I think if Osimhen would have come in and Jackson would have been, let's say, underused, his development would have been stalled. Yeah.
I think at Arsenal we need a finisher. As I've always mentioned in my past videos as well, we need a finisher who can get us that 25-30 goals a season. We are lacking that, right? And we don't have that profile, that kind of player with that kind of a profile at the moment. Good, strong striker in the box, good in the air, a very good, strong finisher, can hold up the play as a striker as well. I think I would have liked him at Arsenal, in fact. And the only thing is, in terms of character, how Arteta would have dealt with him and the rest of the players would have dealt with him, I think. But it always becomes easier if your team is in a good position in the league. Then players having such characters also kind of go with the flow of they fall in the line, go with the flow with the rest of the players. So I would have loved for him to come to Arsenal. But I think, as Yuvi said, Drogba being his, like a player he looks up to, he wanted to go to Chelsea rather than come to Arsenal is what I feel.
Okay. Maybe one thing we missed was that he had agreed to join PSG as well, but PSG later backed out.
Oh, is it?
He agreed on a salary with PSG. He had agreed terms with them very early in the window. Not very early, maybe in the second month, maybe around July or June. And he had agreed with them, but PSG later backed out of the deal.
PSG, it's nothing who comes with Napoli, right?
Yeah. Like, it wasn't that Chelsea was his dream move or something. I think he was just settling it for Chelsea. And I think that's just a narrative that Drogba is his idol, or there's a picture of him wearing a Chelsea jersey when he was really young. But I think
there was an interview during I think one of the under-19 tournaments.
Yes, he said.
Wherein he was asked which club do you admire and which players do you look up to, and that's when he from the video it kind of becomes clear that that was his move at that point of time. But I think that was a different Chelsea back then. So it's very difficult.
And he also matured, right? Like that was like 6-7 years ago. Then everyone matures, everyone has different priorities, everyone evolves. But had that been the case, he would have never agreed a deal with PSG. So I don't think like he was hellbound on Chelsea or something. It was just that we were really wanting him and he was okay with the move.
I think the biggest factor was wages, according to me. I think from whatever has happened in the last few months, right, it was very clear that he is chasing after money rather than a specific club
100%
or project. I think that's where I think everything kind of fell apart.
Yes. That's why Chelsea didn't even say Michael Onissi. Otherwise, had they agreed on the wages that he wanted, around 200 odd K or something, we could have signed Michael Onissi also. He was open to moving to Chelsea, but we withdrew. And that's the right thing to do, I think.
No, agreed. Like, I think a club structure, a wage structure is very important in this.
There shouldn't be any exceptions made. Like, he's not someone, Victor Osimhen, that we can make exceptions. Like, if Kylian Mbappe or Haaland, we can make exceptions, but not for such players.
I really like your positivity that the Kylian Mbappe or Haaland would fall.
No, I'm saying that caliber, like, a player of like that caliber, we can make exceptions to a wage structure. Otherwise, we shouldn't do that.
Okay, great, guys. Great discussion, guys. I hope everyone watching the video liked it. Click the like button, subscribe, and share. Thank you, everyone.